Stone Temple Pilots, the younger and often overlooked band of the brilliant 90s grunge era. They may not have particularly revolutionized the game, but they have a very unique sound with one of my personal favorite vocalists of all time. Today, I'm going to rank every singular last Stone Temple Pilots song, placing them on this beautiful tier list here. Not every song, really. I'm going to cover the band's original run. If you're unfamiliar with the band's history, in typical grunge fashion, there were major drug issues that led to the band's collapse back in 2003. They reformed in 2008 and released a couple more albums, but to be honest, nowhere near their former glory. With that out of the way, let's get started. Core, my precious. I've put about 15 seconds of thought into it and can say that this is my second favorite grunge record ever. It's raw, it's authentic, it's got hits, it's got everything. Let's go. Dead and Bloated, and now for one of my favorite album openers of all time. I mean, come on. The second that beautiful bastard screams I am, you know this record is going to be ridiculously good. It's just good fun. Masterpiece for now. Sex Type Thing, this album pulls no punches. I mean, this is another classic, another radio hit, this one with a bit of controversy to spice it up. Another incredible listen, this album just doesn't miss, man. Amazing tier. Wicked Garden, this shit just doesn't stop, man. Incredible stuff. This is the song that really made me fall in love with Scott's vocals, I think. Just an absolutely mesmerizing job on this track. Top of the amazing tier. No Memory. Now, you're not going to believe this, but I like this track a lot too. It's an instrumental interlude and an acoustic one on a grunge record. If you want the recipe for success, it's an acoustic track from a grunge band. It perfectly sets up the next track. It's a nice break from the mayhem, and it does its job ridiculously well. Really good tier. Sin, a slight dip in quality, I suppose, and when I say slight, I mean really slight. The shit is still incredible. It's a ridiculous vocal performance, again. Really catchy track, I like it a lot. Top of the really good tier. Naked Sunday, now we take a little dip, and when I say little, I mean a pretty big dip. This one just doesn't do too much for me. Maybe the last 5 tracks being incredible makes this one look a little worse in comparison, but nothing really catches my ear here. Good tier. Creep, and we're right back. This is the superior Creep if you were curious, and that comes from John Radiohead himself. Speaking of, I did a Radiohead ranking, and it took a really long time, so watch that, please. I'm not going to promote that again, I promise. Anyway, this is just a phenomenal song everywhere. The lyricism, the vocals, the guitar, it's too damn good. God tier track. Piece of Pie, really heavy, really raw, but nothing really special here. It's a track I often completely forget about when I think about this album. It's good, it's just not knocking my socks off like a couple other tracks here did. Top of the good tier. Plush. Now, I could tell you how good this song is, but you already know. It's my favorite song from the band, it's probably your favorite song from the band. It's the song that put them on the map. Don't give me that it's too mainstream garbage. It's as good as it's gonna get with this band. Top of God tier. Wet My Bed. I actually find this less offensive than the average Joe does. Granted, this shit does suck, but I think it works pretty well on this album. I'll let it play if I'm listening to the record top to bottom, but I would never throw this shit on of my own volition, per se. It's pretty ass, I'm just trying to rationalize it. Met here. Cracker Man, this shit is just really good stuff. I like everything here, it's all just really solid. Again, my socks are still on my feet, but it's a good listen. It's a thumbs up for me. It does, however, sound uncomfortably like Sex Type Thing, though. It's like they're pretty much the same song. Listen to them back to back. Anyway, top of the really good tier. Where the River Goes. Man, I like this song, but fuck is it too long. It's 8 minutes long, which is no problem for me, as I am a Tool fan, but you can really feel the length on this track here. If it were half the length, or maybe even 3/4 of the length, I think I'd like it a lot more. I do really like the lyricism, though. Back of the really good tier. Only Dying, a quick demo track here. I won't go into too much length, but this shit's pretty good, man. Lyrically, one of my favorites for sure, actually. Wish we could have heard of really, like a full produced version of this track, but what are you gonna do? Top of the really good tier. On to Purple, the band's second studio record released way back in 1994. This one with a lot of pressure on its back. This one also meeting those expectations and perhaps surpassing them. It's a little less grunge, but this is where I would argue they established their place with the big dogs. Meat Plow. Is it as good as the last album opener? No. Is it still an absolutely incredible opener for this album? Yes, it is. This is one of my favorites on this record. Vocally phenomenal. Instrumentally just as phenomenal. Back of the amazing tier. Vaseline. This is what I mean when I say they kind of moved away from that typical grunge sound. This is just really good shit. I don't have much to say. Above Meat Plow in the amazing tier. Loungefly. This is where I think their new sound reaches its low. It's alright, it's not really anything particularly special about it. It's a really strange track in all facets. Top of the good tier. Interstate Love Song, same exact things I said about Plush. This shit is just too damn good, and it's universally accepted as good. Behind Plush, in the God tier. Still Remains. This is one of my personal favorites here. Lyrically, probably my favorite track from this band. Instrumentally, it's just very solid. Vocally, incredible as usual. Really good stuff. Back of the masterpiece tier. Pretty Penny. This sounds like a bonus track. It's no place on this record. Not much of a place in their discography as a whole. Thumbs down for me. Okay tier track. Silver Gun Superman. Now this sounds like the last album. This is just that heavy grunge shit that I love so much. Phenomenal stuff. Underrated, if you ask me. Top of the amazing tier. Big Empty. Another iconically good track. Another thumbs up from me. It's incredible. The soft vocals into the eruption of every instrument. It's chef's kiss. Back of the God tier. Unglued. A song I often overlook, but I'm not really sure why. It's nothing super special, but it's just more typical good shit. Really catchy, too. I like it a lot. Top of the really good tier. Army Ants. Almost an indescribable song. If you told me this was STP before the vocals kicked in, I'm not sure I'd even believe you. It's really good shit, though. Behind Sin. In the really good tier. Kitchenware and Candy Bars. A solemn track from STP. Gives me Creep vibes a little bit, and I love that song a lot. I like this song a lot, too. I think if it wasn't attached to that bastard My Second Album, I'd listen to this track a lot more. I'm actually a big fan. Back of the masterpiece tier. My Second Album. Fuck you. No, it's not really that bad. I just wish it was its own track on streaming services, I guess. It's a funny concluding track, nothing to be taken too serious. Still better than Pretty Penny, though. Top of the okay tier. On to Tiny Music, songs from the Vatican Gift Shop. The last album in STP's historic 3-album run, and quite honestly, it's the weakest of the 3. This one not met with as much critical acclaim as the last 2 records. Certainly not from Pitchfork. What the fuck, man? Anyway, let's get started. Press play. A little instrumental introduction to start the record off. I think it's pretty good, but I think it was a very bold way to start this record, and to be frank, it didn't pan out all that great. Incredibly forgettable track in my mind. Behind My Second Album, in the okay tier. Pop's Love, Redacted. This is pretty solid, but not much more than that. Another pretty forgettable track on this record. The vocals here miss a little bit for me. Certainly not my favorite track. Top of the okay tier. Tumble in the Rough. This sounds like core to me. Really heavy riff, really grunge. Pretty solid track. Still just really forgettable though. None of these tracks have the impact that the previous 2 records had. They just sound a little empty to me, a little bland, I guess. It's the best track so far though. Top of the good tier. Big Bang Baby. Here we go. This is the band I know and love. This is good shit. I've got nothing bad to say. It's just a pretty fun track. Really catchy. Back of the amazing tier. Lady Picture Show. Now they're starting to find their groove on this record. This is also really good shit. Still doesn't sound like the STP we've heard on the other albums, though. Maybe that's what I like about this band so much, though. 2 different albums will hit you with 2 completely different styles of music. Still great, though. Behind Unglued in the really good tier. And So I Know, a much more melancholic track here, but I like it. Pretty great vocal performance here. One of my favorites from this record, to be honest with you. Underrated, if you ask me. Above Vaseline in the amazing tier. Tripping on a Hole in a Paper Heart. More iconically good shit. It's really fun, really catchy. Phenomenal everything. Top of the masterpiece tier. Art School Girl. This kind of sucks, man. This is a rough listen. Vocally, it's just kind of sloppy. It's not a song I revisit often. Very all over the place. Not as bad as people make it out to be, but it's not great. Above Press Play in the OK tier. Adhesive. A much needed return to form after the last track. This isn't really anything special, though. It's kind of generic. I like the lyricism a lot, though. I'm going to put it at the top of the good tier. Ride the Cliche. It sounds like they made this one for the radio, and I don't think it made it. Really generic rock sludge. It's alright. Above Art School Girl in the OK tier. Daisy. An interlude track here. The second in a 40-minute record. If this song were wiped from my brain, I would remain the exact same person. In one ear, out the other. It's not offensively bad, but it's just nothing. Decent tier. 7 Cage Tigers. At least we end on a banger with this record. This is more just grunge fun. Catchy. I like it. I would recommend it to a friend. Above Big Bang Baby in the amazing tier. On to the next record, appropriately titled number 4 as the 4th record in the discography. I don't know if you've noticed, but we've been on a steady decline as these albums have gone on. Something to think about. Let's dive in. Down. This is actually really good. It's very core-like. A return to form, I guess. I like it a lot. Reminds me of Alice in Chains a little bit, who I like a lot. Behind Meat Plow in the amazing tier. Heaven and Hot Rods. More good shit here. Still very core-like. Maybe I spoke too soon about the decline. Thumbs up so far, actually. Behind Lady Picture Show in the really good tier. Pruno. This whole album kind of feels like an unreleased mashup to me. Those last two songs sounded very core-like, this one, very Purple-like. But I like it a lot. Really good so far. Appropriately behind Unglued in the really good tier. Church on Tuesday, I mean, it's alright. It's just kind of uninteresting and bland to me. There's nothing really all that fresh here. Back of the good tier. Sour Girl, another radio hit. I made that up. I don't listen to the radio, but it sounds like it could have been a radio hit. Really good, really fresh. Thumbs up from me. Lyrically, very questionable, but I'm going to let it slide for today. Behind Still Remains in the masterpiece tier. No Way Out. This is pretty good. More of that core sound I like so much. Really raw, very grunge. Pretty good. But nothing really pulls me in too much. It's more of the same we've already heard from this band. I'm going to put it above No Memory in the really good tier. Sex and Violence. This isn't very good, to be honest. Vocally lacking a bit, which I don't like to say about this band. Nothing really stands out here. It's pretty hollow sounding. Above my second album in the okay tier. Glide. This is the longest 42-minute album I've ever experienced. This track is mediocre. I don't hate it. I don't love it. Same story with a lot of this album. I do think the chorus is pretty catchy here, though. Not the worst track here. Back of the good tier. I Got You. A pretty interesting track here, actually. It's pretty fresh. It just doesn't sound like STP to me. Lacks that rawness and that grit that the previous albums had. It's above my second album in the okay tier. MC5. Dude, this one actually sucks. What the hell is even going on here? Thumbs down, frowny face, top of the decent tier. Atlanta. This is really good. Probably my favorite song on this record. Maybe the last two records. Really different from that usual STP sound, but it's done very well. I like it a lot. It's a great way to wrap this record up. Back of the God tier. On to the band's final album in their original run, Shangri-La-Dee-Da. It's not known for being great. Hell, it's not even known for being average, but it marks the end of an incredibly influential band. Let's hop in. Dumb Love, pretty fucking heavy start. The vocals are a little off, but let's just hope that's not a theme for the rest of this record. Pretty solid other than that, though. I like it quite a bit. Behind Sin in the really good tier. Days of the Week, it's a solid track, but not much more than that. I fear that's a theme for the rest of this record. Nothing special. Sounds a little bit like typical radio garbage to me. Above Art School Girl in the okay tier. Coma, this is solid, but I say the same thing. Just no memorability. It's a song I'll listen to for this video, and then I'll probably never listen to it again. Very hollow. Above Naked Sunday in the good tier. Hollywood Bitch, I'm Out of Things to Say, top of the good tier. Wonderful. I do enjoy the softness of this track. The vocals are done fairly well here as well, until they do that weird harmonizing thing that's only present on this album. I don't really like that at all. Behind Naked Sunday in the good tier. Black Again, this is pretty solid. Vocals done well again, thank God. I like the use of the piano too. I feel like we don't hear that much from this band. I'll put it at the back of the good tier. Hello, It's Late. I don't hate it, I don't love it. Same story, but it's a much more enjoyable listen than a lot of the tracks on this record, to be honest. The acoustic guitar with Scott's voice is a recipe for, at the very least, a listenable track. Back of the really good tier. Too Cool Queenie. It sounds like tiny music to me, and it's that style done relatively mediocrely. It's alright, I like the instrumentation a lot at least, but man, it just doesn't it doesn't flow. Top of the okay tier. Regeneration. So bad that I'm not going to say anything. Back of the decent tier. Bipolar Bear, I just don't know what the hell is going on anymore. This whole album feels like filler, but why? It's pretty bad. Top of decent. Transmissions from a Lonely Room. Good grief, I just can't wrap my head around anything here. It's bad. What the hell happened at the end of this record? Above Regeneration in the decent tier. A Song for Sleeping. Long Way Home. Let me tell you something, my dear viewer. The only thing we are a long way from is good music. Well, not that long for you, I guess. Purple was probably like 10 minutes ago. But it feels like eternity for me. I'm happy to be done. What a decline. This might be the worst song on here, too. No strong conclusion. Above Regeneration in decent tier. Rapid Fire Unplugged rankings time. We've covered the original tracks. I'm not going to go in depth, but Unplugged is peak, so I'm going to rank it for you. Cracker Man, better than the original. Behind Down in the amazing tier. Creep, a top 5 Unplugged track of all time. Takes the original to new heights. Above the original in the God tier. Plush, another top 5 Unplugged track. I do prefer the rawness of the original here, though. I'm going to put it above Big Empty in the God tier. Wicked Garden, really, really, really good. Behind Sour Girl in the masterpiece tier. Big Empty, not as good as the original, I wouldn't say. Again, kind of lacks that punch in the same way Plush does. Back of the masterpiece tier. Andy Warhol, a little David Bowie cover. If I had a nickel for every time a grunge band covered a David Bowie song on MTV Unplugged and did it masterfully, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird it happened twice. Back of the masterpiece tier. Sex Type Thing, I know many prefer this version, but I just prefer the rawness and the anger in the original track. Still good. Behind Meat Plow, in the amazing tier. Now I'm done. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I did. Well, at least the beginning. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you think Scott Weiland faked his death, and peace.